I'm Kristen Kalina from Mastermind Adventures. This is Lucia Colombaro. She is the co-founder of the New England Base Camp Homeschool Cooperative in Milton, Massachusetts. And Lucia is, you just mentioned that she's an accidental entrepreneur, which I am also, I am also that. But she helps run an incredible group of kids and teens and parents, really, if you think about it, in this wonderful space that is a Boy Scout camp, right? And allows them to have an incredible experience with kind of choosing their education, choosing their own path, and exploring the outdoors at the same time. And I thought she'd be a great person to talk to the community because of her expertise in this area. So thanks so much for being with us, Lucia.
Thank you for having me.
So Lucia and I met, gosh, not that long ago.
Last year?
About a year ago, was it?
About a year.
Yeah, so, and we were connected through another homeschool mom that was like, you two similar minds need to like get together. So we did.
Yeah.
But tell the community a little bit more about yourself and your background, and a little bit more about you.
Well, I'm a mom of two girls, 12 and 9, and I've homeschooled them since the very beginning. They did go to a cooperative preschool, one for 2 years and one for a year, but other than that, we've been homeschoolers, and predominantly unschoolers. You know, I remember thinking in my teen years that really my vocation was being a project doer.
I like that.
And it was a little hard to find, you know, to find the right correspondence.
Yeah.
But I started out in the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
I worked in different fundraising. I worked for alumni associations, and I also started a business with my husband, and he way back when we were younger. So, you know, that had its lifespan, and we learned a lot. And then I became involved in a wonderful initiative in the state of Maine. We lived there for about 5 years, and it was coming out of a state mandate to explore this idea called the creative economy. And I helped organize a community conference, and from that conference came a set of priorities that the community, so it became a community mandate from the state down to the community level, and we started a program that turned a small town into a campus.
Awesome.
And there are all these amazing artisans and people who sort of practiced healing arts, and we basically put together a catalog of classes that allowed these people who otherwise couldn't earn a living through easily or in any substantial way through teaching their skills. And it was a wonderful experience. And soon thereafter I became a mom, and I came back to Boston, and so that sort of marked my homeschooling journey. And as a homeschooling mom, and I've been involved with nonprofits around social justice and anti-racism, and I was on the board of the Rape Education and Crisis Hotline, so I have a variety of sensibilities and things that I care deeply about. But education and my kids, and the idea that, you know, we can, you know, parents become the evolving point for the next generation, right? We pick how we want to, what we want to nurture. And so I found the most challenging thing about homeschooling was a regular community.
Yes.
Where you can come back to the same watering hole, and your relationships can have a varying degree of intimacy and intensity, or familiarity, and you have a full range, and it allows for a slow progression and development of dynamics over time. And that was the most challenging aspect of homeschooling for me. And so I had found sort of a cohort of other moms, and we basically, from the time my eldest was 5, we sort of stuck together, and I'm sure it sounds familiar to other homeschoolers to some degree, maybe. And even with that, it was sort of like, you know, the desire for a bigger container never went away. And so one of the moms in this cohort told me about an invitation she'd received to explore a forest kindergarten at this facility here in Milton. And my children were both older than that. But I went, and I saw an incredible opportunity for homeschoolers. And the facility was not being utilized, and it was tremendous. And between the swimming pool and archery ranges and boulders for climbing and just infrastructure and a lot of thought that had been put into it. And so we decided to put out the call and invite folks to come and be part of sharing this space together. And it was instantly well received, because sometimes we're all looking for the same thing, and that I just feel very lucky that I was able to be the one to say yes, So we put together a little business plan and just took it from there. The council, the Boy Scout Council CEO, Chuck Eaton, is a visionary man with a real capacity to see opportunity, but also a very deep understanding of what he wants to contribute to in the world. It's kind of remarkable. And so to just find some resonance with that energy there just brought things to life. So we ran programming 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We had 75 families over those 3 days, and it was families. So it was never a drop-off program. It was a family-based wilderness cooperative. And so kids would come, parents and children would come, and of course the community for the adults was as compelling, if not sometimes more compelling, than the community for the kids, because we need that as parents. We need relationship. And what was so interesting for me was to step back and say, this is different. The parental engagement between one another, this is way deeper and more resonant of something I thought used to exist, and you don't really find in schools. Like, you have your community, but it's still very superficial and back and forth and whatever. This was a time for real exchange between parents, and also a moment to share the rearing of our children like a village. Like, we could sit back and it could go. And it's not far-fetched for a lot of homeschoolers. I mean, we do have our cooperatives and we can do that together, but the conscious connection with nature and the sort of commitment of it, it just made it feel different to me than other experiences that I'd had up until that point. And so that is what, we took advantage of everything that the facility already had in place in terms of educational offerings. And then, and that included range sports, orienteering, survival skills, wonderful opportunities for hikes, which of course opens up nature and learning about, what's on the path before us, and developing relationships with some really interesting people who are the instructors that are already associated with the council, and just, they in and of themselves are such a delightful, wonderful new universe of ideas and skills, and so that is just a richness that really contributed to everything. So, and then we did bring in outside folks to teach other classes, ranging from pottery to flamenco, broadcasting, suddenly different art classes. There was a drumming class for actual, drums, not with sticks. This last session. I'm of course drawing a blank on it, but just a wonderful opportunity to just include other people who also are looking for that place to go and to bring these skills so that they have. And We brought some parkour folks in, which was a new and interesting thing for them because they could start to think about the outdoors as opposed to the more playground structure-y things you can think about, rocks and hillsides. And we weren't encouraged or to use trees, but the imagination can run wild. So that's been wonderful. And and then the other piece was free play, just really time for kids to play. And it was like, okay, I'm creating this space for my kids to do what I did when I was little, but I did it on the street.
Yep.
And so, and they would just organize and, oh, hello, little friend. Love it, little visitor. So they would just organize into games and play and play and play and play and play and play, and that's what they want to do. So, and working out dynamics between one another, and figuring out like what's fair, what's not fair, and what's been interesting is parental responses to kids working things out, and it's varied. But for the most part, by the end of the year, most parents are like, yeah, like they've got this, we're seeing it, and it varies, but I think the majority did feel that way, and the kids are great.
Kids are great.
Kids are great.
They really are.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
So for people who are not homeschoolers in our community, tell them a little bit more about what is a co-op, because I know when I first came to homeschooling I was like, I don't know what these terms mean. So explain a little bit more about how a co-op generally works and what that is, or if they're new to homeschooling, we may have some new homeschoolers in here as well.
Well, homeschooling co-ops range, but the fundamental idea is that it's parents coming together to organize themselves to create something for all of their children to participate in. Some can be academic, so if you're a homeschooler, you may have a more academically oriented co-ops. Some can be more of what in traditional schooling would be considered extracurricular. And I guess if you were to frame it that way, that's sort of the more of where we came in. And some can just be strictly social, so that your children just have kids to play with, and then you can hybrid it. It can be a combination of those things. So, but it's really about parents working together, and the structure of that cooperative depends on the group. We had I was one of 3 moms who were sort of we did the heavy lifting and created the space for other parents with the invitation to be involved, and that was an interesting evolution in dance, and it's continuing to go. But because we were in this facility, it felt really wise for our ability to endure and stay able to utilize the facility and the greater community that was presented to us, to limit the number of people who were interacting with the council, because we didn't want to tire them out or overwhelm them. We want to really make it a beneficial experience, and so that's sort of more, when you get to higher level thinking around higher level organizational aspects, that's a whole other conversation. But for us, it's continuing to evolve. And so next year actually is different. It will be different than the last 2 years.
Right.
Do you want me to speak about how that's going to change, or
Yeah,
should
we
I
can
speak
talk about that more at the.
co-ops,
Yeah,
or-
we'll talk about more. We'll talk about that definitely at the end.
Yep.
But yeah. So, what is your personal philosophy about kids and education and play and kind of just, I guess, development of kids? Like, what would be the thing that holds you together? Yeah.
My working framework starts with meeting a child, or really anybody, but a child where they are, and immediately just employing a kind of attention and care for each individual person that is step number 1. So, for example, as we're going forward in what we're developing, what's guiding me is this idea that humans are social creatures, and so our development really is kind of dependent on one another. And it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because we have to do our own stuff.
Yeah.
And we have to be the ones to do our own work and take our own risks. But the support and the understanding and the example of our people around us is really important. We don't exist alone. And so my focus and what's driven me with my homeschooling journey is this idea of sort of, I only got my favorite language for recently, which is group-supported individual development, right?
I love that.
Right. So that what we do as a group is about each person coming into their own, and so it's an interesting combination of paying attention to each person and understanding that we're not all the only thing, the only person in the group, that we're part of a whole, and that our opportunity to learn about ourselves has to do with taking risks within the container of our people, of our group. And so everything that I really deeply care about has to do with learning that there's such a tremendous body of knowledge behind this idea of individual development and risk-taking for kids and group development, and that adults are such a critical part of that, and that mentors and passionately knowledgeable masters are the greatest teachers, and somehow you have to find the right combination. And sometimes that means it's more than one person, it's more than one teacher who's teaching you. It's a combination of ingredients, and it allows for kind of taking in by osmosis, like how someone who's really good at what they do, how they relate to what they do, how they approach the work of it, how they problem solve in the moment, and how they pace themselves. These are all things that that's not what's usually in instruction.
Yeah.
But it's the stuff that helps you do it or not.
Right.
And when you see someone who's really good, what you're getting is really good information. And so, but that person may not be able to help hold the group or help keep the social dynamic moving and healthy, or pay attention and care for individual children. And that's where having other adults in your pot as another ingredient is really important, to kind of be an interpreter when it's not totally clear what a more masterful person might be saying, or just tune in differently, to what's going on with the kids, or how much attention, where the attention is. And attention, I mean, not to bias anyone, I don't know, it's such maybe an American thing to be so reluctant to speak about one's deepest personal beliefs, but I found a lot of help recently in the last several years reading Buddhism.
Yeah.
And not as a religion, but as a set of skills, of practices. And one thing that I've taken away that's been very useful for me as a parent is in Buddhism they talk about presence, like being present, right? Which just means like I'm not gonna let my mind wander. I'm gonna be 100% here with you. I'm gonna look at you. I'm gonna take in what's going on, and I'm here. I'm showing up for you. And so what's so interesting to me, and this relating to screens, is really like where I found a way to draw the line. The only thing I say to my kids now, my takeaway, this is my own spin on it, but the only thing we really have to give to one another is our attention. That's all we actually have in the world.
Yep.
Like, you can have a million things, but in the end, the only thing you have all the time, and that you really genuinely can choose to give or not to give, is your attention. And so, I feel supported in that by Buddhist principles around presence, right? So, when I'm trying to make a decision around, okay, what's the right thing to talk about with my kids right now, because I'm feeling uneasy about, okay, you've been on the screen too long and you're pushing back on me and I'm saying no, like, let's find something else to do. We need more balance. The reminder is, all we have is our attention,
right.
and we need, I would like your attention right now, or I would like you to think about where you're going to put your attention, because that screen is getting you.
Right.
And it's okay to have it a little bit.
Right.
It's part of what's happening in the world right now, but it can't have all of it all the time. And that's what's so powerful about the tension. I mean, as a parent, that I feel is that it's like the complete absorption of the person, and that's really cool on the one hand, because they're in it, which I want for my kids to be that into anything that they do, right? And that's really another piece of why I created these opportunities to, like, say, you can go deep as you want with this, and I'm gonna do everything I can to start to reveal all these different elements that one of them, two of them are gonna capture your imagination, and then it's your little rabbit hole down into this entire new universe of knowledge around carving, working with wood, or observing nature, or climbing a rock, and not knowing if you can do it or not, but that's going to get all of your attention, my hope, eventually.
Right.
So and so that's where then the next the next piece of guidance from the Buddhism, and not just Buddhism, is let's just have balance around it, because I'm not going to villainize the screen. I know that there's something very, I dare say, it's part of how we're evolving as humans. Whether how I personally feel about it is like a separate conversation, but it's happening, and I think trying to keep it away forever is it just will create a barrier between me and my child that will close down communication. And instead, I just want to say, okay, this is one of the things that we do together, and then I just feel really fortunate to have the access to the outdoors that I do, because not everyone gets to do that. And what's cool is that by doing this, all of a sudden I'm noticing all of these outdoor places that are just waiting for people. Organizations with staff, like infrastructure and amazing programming, like curricula that are ready to go, and they're everywhere, and they're desperate for people. And so now suddenly I'm like, oh, and it's not like it's news to me, but the extent of how much is out there and how much support, just making nature a priority can shift, how much support these entities get, because a lot of them are municipal or national, the National Park Service and all the offshoots, and the Audubon and all the offshoots, and they have this land that they're preserving, which is another huge thing, because it could go away, God forbid. So
I'm just listening. I don't want to interrupt you. This is such great stuff, So I've got another. I'm going to check my time. Okay, we're good. No, we're good. So I'm going to give you two questions, and you can kind of choose.
Ping pong.
Choose kind of how you want to answer it, because they kind of go hand in hand. Since starting the community, what has been the biggest thing that you've learned, or what has been the thing that most surprised you?
Let's see. There's sort of two pieces, sort of my own personal learning, and then my observation of the group. It's in the dynamics. First, for me personally, a surprise for me was just how much I I love the outdoors. I just didn't know. I never disliked the outdoors.
I always thought that you were like Miss Outdoorsy before that. No, this is kind of a new, yeah?
Well, I mean, I love to go to the beach and I love to go places, but it wasn't part of my life.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't something that I thought to myself, I have to go outside today and be outside. Like, I'm a modern person. I live in the world. I've binge watched series and spent days in the house. And, you know, like, it's not like, you know, but at the end of it, like, how do you feel, you know? Yeah. And so the crazy part about coming out here is that I always just feel so much better in ways that I don't, you know, that's what's surprising, the ways that you feel better and what it brings out. Like, I've learned to, I'm getting certified as a rock climbing instructor.
Amazing.
Because why? Because never was that a goal of mine. Because I need to do it to help teach risk-taking for kids. And so, like, if you ever said to me, like, oh, your hobby is rock climbing, you're going to go and, you know, be a rock climbing instructor, I'd be like, no. That's never, like, that's nice and everything. Why would I do that? And now I'm like, I got to do this. Like, what do I have to do? Okay, boom, boom, rock climbing. And I'm hanging 40-foot cliffs. You know, like, I'm not going to look down. I'll try looking down. And it's my own development as a human being, which ultimately I feel is, as a homeschooling parent, the biggest thing I can do is just do it. Do the learning. Take the risk in front of my kids. And so that was the big surprise to me. Like, this is awesome, and I never would have picked this for myself. And so that's the jewel, the gift of this path. When it comes to the community, the most surprising thing is really the adults. Like, to the point where I kind of want to cry a little bit. Like, it's amazing. Not just the parents, which, you know, there have just been moments of genuine feeling and understanding, and that's been really powerful. And the instructors who've come, it's really special, you know, to have an opportunity to be valued for what they, I mean, some of these people who have come to teach us what they know, it is such a profound love of theirs, what they have to offer. There's so many years and years and years of experience and cultivation, and they could be completely ignored in the world. In general, as people, and to get an opportunity, first of all, to share this, but second of all, to really believe and know that they're valued for that, has been, that I didn't see it coming, and it's been really, really awesome, and it keeps me full of life around this. Like, it really does. So
no, I know what you mean. I mean, I know at Masterminds we've got, I wish we had the outdoors. That is this is a conversation that my husband and I often have, because we're in a mall, which is great. The spaces, you know, we appreciate it. But you know, we've looked at a lot of different spaces, and if we're going to move, I want to be in a space where we have both the indoor and the outdoor, because it's a huge component of what we do. And we've been able to partner with places like Base Camp and the YMCA that have afforded us some outdoor spaces so that we can still run outdoor programming, but being able to, because usually what happens for our community is they're there all day, just like you guys, right? They come in, they park, they bring a bag of food for the kids, and the kids just play. And they play in my back area. It's about 2,000 square feet. It's a big space. And they do a lot of, you know, making forts and running around and inventing games and all the things you want kids to be doing, right? But they're still indoors in a 2,000 square foot space. So being able to have that indoor-outdoor is a huge priority for us moving forward, you know, as we're looking at different spaces. And we're not quite there yet. We're not quite ready to move, but you know, if we are going to move, I want it to be worthwhile, and I want it to be in a space where we can have both. Because watching the kids, and I'm sure you feel the same way, watching the kids have that space to be creative, to play, the unstructured time to do that is so valuable. And like you said, watching the adults make the connections and share with each other and develop friendships is massively, massively huge. Like there's nothing like it, right? I mean, it's like, you're like, wow, I just opened this space and now there's all these people having friendships that would have never known each other before, you know, and helping each other with each other's kids. And like you said, that kind of village mentality that you don't see in a lot of places. You don't get that in a lot of spaces anymore. Everybody's busy, you're kind of in and out, or you're looking to drop off while you go do something else. So having a space where people spend 6 to 8 hours sitting and hanging out, that just, I mean, college, right? I mean, where else do you do that? There's just not a lot of spaces like that, but better than that because there's not all the other weird stuff going on. And the teens has been a big surprise to me too. I don't know if I've talked to you about that, and you have some teens.
We do.
In your group too.
We have less teens than we'd like to.
Oh, it's a red-winged blackbird. We're outdoors at Houghton's Pond, so nature's all around us.
So
it's amazing. Yeah.
The teens is the one area that we're excited to see happen. Teens need to come in a pack.
Yes.
And if you don't have a core pack that creates that gravitational nucleus, it doesn't hold together. So next year's programming, or this fall's programming, is, you know, we're excited at the prospect of teens kind of thinking like, this is for me.
If you get a couple of teens, we started with my kids were teens when we started meeting on Wednesdays as the fan club. Before that, we had like a DIY club that people were coming to just on a weekly basis and to kind of drop in. But my kids were teens, so that kind of started. But we needed other teens, and it really started with just I look back at the pictures, because you know how like Facebook is like, hey, remember this? So I'll look back at the pictures and there's like 4 kids, you know, and then that was it. But then it's grown, and now we've got, I don't know, at least it seems like sometimes it feels like we've got 25 kids, but it's probably more in the realm of like 15 that like regularly come, and it's their thing, and they hang out together. So it'll grow.
Well, and if an existing group of teens doesn't find us, our kids will become those teens.
Right, exactly. And then you'll have a ton of teens. And they'll start coming, you know. It's true. They'll grow into it.
It's really, really interesting. In fact, I'm like on the 12 years old as my eldest. I'm just like, bracing myself. It's gonna be awesome, but here we go.
It is gonna be awesome. So you talked I was gonna ask you about your source of inspiration, but you kind of talked about that a lot, so that's great. So considering, hi little guy. Okay, you're good. So now he's on my paper. That's fine. So talking about parents that might not have a community around them yet. What are some ideas for them to help their kids at home? Maybe activities that are great kind of go-to activities to start getting their kids off screens, or that kind of thing, getting them outside, or what are some of the things that might be helpful for them?
So the trickiest trade-off, especially, if we talk about homeschoolers, the amount of time is very different than if you're not homeschooling.
Right.
So,
Yes.
But I think that once that's sort of, having said that, the dilemma is the same, right? How much attention do we give how much of us do we give our kids, or can we give our kids, and how much is too much, which as homeschoolers can be, especially when they're younger, can be a question. But more importantly, I think the bigger tension is too little. And then how do we carve out time for ourselves where our children don't default like, oh, you're busy? Okay, bye. I'm going to go be on the screen now.
Right.
So how do we do that? And so, and I live in this tension every day because I still have things that I want to do and
trying to find that balance.
Exactly. And things that I have to do. And so, I'm the practice that in other words, what I try to do every day. Oh, they like you too.
They do. They all like me.
Go away. Oh,
He really likes me.
Oh dear. Is he gone? Oh, nope.
No, he's on there
gone.
still. He's gone. Okay.
It's over there now.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
That was fun.
little interlude. What's that piece? The something of the bumblebee.
Yeah. Oh, the flight of the bumblebee.
Flight of the bumblebee.
Yeah.
Thank you. It escaped me for a second. That was our little flight of the
Woo!
bumblebee.
Oh, he likes my camera now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. You can stay there.
Oh man. So, any time to sit and converse is awesome. The craziest thing that I find myself having to force myself to do is when they want to show me their games that they're playing on their video games. And the craziest thing is when I sit with them and I listen to what they're into about it, it reminds me of when they were very, very small. Mom, look at this. I can do this with this character. I can change this to, and oh, I finally got this thing that I really, really care about. And so what's interesting for me is to take those little interludes and sit with them, because somehow there's such honest information coming out of that exchange. Like, it's genuinely, I'm not part of that. So this is what my child wants me to first of all, to share with me.
Right.
And second of all, they really, this means something to them in a way that I'm not necessarily picking up on. So from that point of view, I first of all get some reassurance that it's not just like, it's like, no, this is a very attentive, there's stuff happening that, and I've got this goal that I'm working for. So this is an interesting dilemma for me. I'm sitting with it going, so I just use it as a time to get the information about where, it's just like I was saying, a very genuine, kind of unadulterated
Right.
perspective and information from my child. And that allows me to start to make connections elsewhere, right? And to just know them and to play with them and to be in other contexts with them, right? So because when I feel like the screen is dominating, when I feel like too much of that is going on, if that starts to happen, that's sort of what I can do. But in terms of strategies, I feel that as a parent, I can do two things: one-on-one connection and invitation. To sort of say, hey, you wanna? We have little names for things, like we do chit chat. My daughter loves sounds of things, right? So chit chat's perfect for her. So you want to have some? Do you want to do some chit chat? Yeah. Okay. So chit chat means I don't.
Have an agenda.
Talk.
Yeah,
we just talk and you tell me what's going on, and it's a ritual that's very comforting for both of us.
Yeah.
And then, I think that homeschooling creates more time, and it allows for different containers, but that parenting is the same.
Right.
And that it's really about how do we stay connected to our kids in a way that doesn't feel like, oh, how do I stay connected? No, it's a primary relationship in our life. In my life, each child is a primary relationship, and so that means knowing them, listening to them, spending time with them, enjoying them, being able to reflect them back to themselves when they need that. And of course, for me, it affirms so much about the choice to raise children and to put my effort into really trying to understand what will benefit.
Right.
It's a lot of thought.
Yeah.
And work.
Yeah.
And to feel like this is worthwhile.
Right.
This is the most worthwhile thing that I can imagine. And so that's the relationship loop that is the core of it all. And so, I would, anytime you can play a game with your kids, anytime you can do anything together, even watch a movie together. I've read articles on the value of, it's really valuable to sit and watch a movie with your kids, even if you don't like the movie at all.
Yes.
The fact that you're watching with them is a shared experience, because conceivably the movie prompts questions that you're immediately available to answer and to reassure or whatever. And it's not so much, that they couldn't do that on their own, but that work of art was created to prompt those questions, and so you might as well make it do its job, and it's not so bad. You can sit and watch a movie with your kids, you snuggle, you do whatever, you eat popcorn, like, there are all these other lovely little aspects to it that can, and so, and I think that the biggest push that I feel in the world to, like, sort of resist feeling overwhelmed is to create these pockets of space that just is about the connection between us, and that slowing life down to that place. And I'm sure, we all do this in our own ways, but that is the ultimate act of not becoming overwhelmed by what do I do.
Right. What are some of your favorite books or blogs or sources of inspiration to yourself that kind of are, help fuel your creative fire, either as an organizer or as a parent?
Well, interestingly, I spend a lot of time with spiritual readings.
Yes, great. No, that's great.
There's something so essential about them that it kind of cuts through a lot of other questions for me. So I do. And it's where I center myself. It's where I center myself. And some people have religious communities that maybe can serve that purpose. I read and try to make every community that I'm part of sort of a reflection of that, because I want to feel like I'm living in the world in a way that is a reflection of my heart. And it's tricky to do that. Trickier than I would, than my 18-year-old self ever thought. Like, seriously?
Oh man, back when things were simple, Lucia. Wow. Back when I thought I'm feeling that. Like, conquer the world,
right?
Everything's so much easier when you're, oh my gosh.
And just the thought that, like,
seriously,
living by your heart.
Oh yeah.
It's gotta be like, that's the way.
Simple.
Yeah.
And everybody feels that way, don't they?
Oh man.
Talk about a big surprise. Like, what? Other people don't share my values or my thoughts or my feelings about things. This is new information.
Yeah, you wanna be angry and mean all the time?
Yeah.
Like,
it continually surprises. Yes. That's one that just never stops being a surprise.
Right.
Like, really? You're upset about what? Like, do you know about this other stuff going on? Like, okay, you're spending your energy on that. Yeah. So yeah, no, yeah. I feel you.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. No.
And so, I feel that other parents, so for parenting, I've taken I'm reading climbing manuals and group dynamic books.
Yes.
And this is where my parenting and a lot of articles and everything from the Boy Scout handbook to there's Peter Senge with and Paulo Freire, like all these great, like there's so much out there to tap into, and for me it's I find myself with bigger questions than the parenting, and I don't know if that's maybe that's a revelation to myself, like oh yeah, I'm not really worried about, I need fuel, I think as a parent we need fuel, and so it's these bigger questions at this point in my life, because we live in a world, like I homeschool, but we live in this world with all of the issues that we're surrounded by, and all of the question marks and tensions and uncertainties, and I want to raise a child who can live in this world. And so, how do I do that? It's hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
What do I do in the face of the news? We don't even really watch the news.
I know. Yeah.
And still, you can't get away from it. And it's not like I'm trying to avoid it. I just spent so much time in my life doing so much of that I feel like it's not necessary to get to the heart of things. But the bigger questions of how do you deal with difference? How do you deal with antagonism or violence or on a social level, or how do you deal with, dynamics in families that can be difficult, or observing other families, or even within our family, there are parts of the family where things feel really nice and parts where it's less obvious, and it can be painful. This is the heart of the real, that stuff. And so that's where I go for the bigger questions.
Yeah.
And then in terms of blogs, I go for entertainment.
Yes. Tell us, entertain us. What are you listening to?
I mean, actually, recently I'm doing so much of this other reading that takes up all my time. But I've gone through my periods of film noir and dark stories and murder mysteries, and I don't, you gotta explore the dark side.
I love that.
And then there's music. That's a big part of our lives is music. So, and movement and dance and kung fu and so So I feel like I'm not giving specific enough answers.
No, it's good. But they're yours.
Yeah,
I love it.
And I think if I can affirm anything, it's just that we're people and we're searching for we're figuring it out, and we don't have all the answers, but
we definitely don't.
But we do have each other, and there's there's nothing as grounding as a good conversation with another human being.
Love it.
Yeah, this is such a tremendous
gift. Well, for the last part, I guess you should tell people about what to expect this fall from New England Base Camp if you're in the local area. Yeah. I'm in the sun in this really weird. I keep leaning forward, leaning back to see if I can.
Over?
Yeah, it's okay. No, it's all right. We're almost done. Yeah, we're nearly done.
I'll talk now.
So tell people about what's coming this fall and where to find you. And if you are not local to us, then you should probably look for co-ops in your area or other places that you can get your kid out into nature that are like Lucia's Mind Child. So tell them about what's going to be happening this fall.
So our co-op has evolved because within the co-op there were various needs. So there were younger families, children with children who are in the early learner bracket, and they are really looking for sort of a hybrid model of sort of homeschooling with some access to more basic instruction. And so one of the moms, Amy Warren, and her husband Dan, who are our link to this wonderful facility, they have started a 3-day-a-week program for children up until the age of 13, but most of the children are between 6 and 9, where they have a professional educator who's going to be working, and the kids come 3 days a week committed. So it's a sort of everything builds on everything else. So you come 3 days a week, and it is a co-op. So the parents will be contributing to the ratio of adults to children, and in various ways programmatically. But the main thrust is that there is an educator who will weave instruction into an outdoor fabric.
Awesome.
So that's called Home Base.
Okay.
And then on Wednesdays, which is your day, is the continuation of what we've developed over the 2 years. And so the other mom, there are 3 of us, that is just community day, and so all of our 3-day families are now condensed into 1 day on Wednesdays, and we're full. We have, I think we'll be having the desire was to max out around 75 people. And so, and that's family. So you've got, family with 1 kid or 5 kids, they're coming.
Yep.
So, so that's very exciting, and it's really a continuation of using the facility, having outdoor free time, and then having other instruction. We have amazing fabric arts instructor come, and she's been with us all year. There are just tons of wonderful things, and access to the pool, etc. And then for my part, I've developed a series of thematic learning days that are drop-offs for kids 10 and plus. And so we have a leadership institute on Mondays, a STEAM day on Tuesdays, a media lab on Thursdays, and theater in the woods on Fridays.
Awesome.
So we're our team of instructors is filling in the last spots and for the team, and just amazing people. And we're doing things like leadership is to use this COPE, Challenging Outdoor Personal Experience, as the container, and that's why I'm getting certified as a climbing instructor. But then we have a team of coaches to do World Peace Game, debate, Model UN, and this wonderful program called Main Street Philanthropy, where kids learn, first are helped to discover their passion and then translate that into actually learning to raise money for an organization that's doing that work. Awesome. And then becoming the donor.
That's so cool.
And also be able to volunteer and get involved and to build relationships that way. So just very, very cool. And the Model UN team is, scheduled to, if kids want to go to New York in March, the end of March, that's the plan. And then the STEAM is we have 3 sessions. We're going to be building a life-size machine for 10 weeks. We're going to be looking at fractals, so in nature, and then creating textiles out of them. And then we're going to track and catalog the wildlife in the forest.
Awesome.
So those are each 10-week sessions. And we have an amazing instructor who is our primary instructor. And then we have specialists who are coming in, and I have a master maker who I will know soon. I am so excited about these people. It's just so cool.
Awesome.
Just so cool. So, and then Media Lab kids are actually gonna with a professional broadcaster who's older, and so he's kind of old school, which is exciting for me because he's a team of himself and then a younger person, who's a young person. So they're in real broadcasting on TV, like sports broadcasting, and real journalists. So it's that skill set, but to create, so kids can create their own YouTube channel, their own podcast. They really will do it, and we will learn to broadcast and distribute all of that. So that's really cool. And then Theater in the Woods is that soup to nuts theater, full day, 1 day a week for 34 weeks, 2 productions a year. And the first half of each session is to learn about, everyone gets exposed to all of what theater is, from taking your script and then figuring out how you do character development, to set design, to lighting design, to costuming, all of that. And then by mid-session, everyone sort of figures out what they're most passionate about, and then that's their job to produce a show.
So how do they find you? Is there a website, or is it best on Facebook? Or?
Yep. There's right now the New England Basecamp Cooperative Facebook page catches all of 3 programs information. Then there's the website through New England Basecamp, and it's under the Homeschool network. So if you go to newenglandbasecamp.org, I believe. Then you just look for the Homeschool network, and we're in there, and I can make sure you have all the exact links for that. And very soon I hope that we'll have our own little page, just because I want to show off all these instructors. I'm so excited. I'm like,
that's
woo!
Awesome.
So it's a good thing, and hopefully we'll get to play with you in spring, because that's a huge lead. There's there's so much passion and interest, and I think live action role play for learning
it's exciting. Yeah,
the best
it's so
way to
fun.
go.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. Thank you to our watchers and our listeners if you're listening to us on the podcast.
Thank you.
And I so appreciate you. Yeah, I so appreciate you. This was so fun.
Oh, good.
I know, I appreciate it. All right, thanks guys. Take care.